Good afternoon, Mr. Bharat. Thanks for being with us.
Good afternoon, Prashant. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good, Vic. Just give me a second.
I hope all well and
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure you are doing well at your end as well.
yeah, absolutely. All well, all safe.
Okay. So I think just getting right away to the point, and I think since morning I was part of the panel where there were obviously people from NITI. We spoke about policies, and we had somebody from MEA. There was a gentleman from uh, Haryana. Then we have CDOT. And I think one thing which is getting common is the kind of risk, new risks which are actually coming out because of current situation, the pandemic situation which has arisen. While some of the changes had to be made in the IT infrastructure, allowing other home users to connect. So I thought I'll start with the risk which you see are clearly visible in today's time. Do you want to just start with the risk and we'll take it from
Uh, so let me start by saying thanks to having me over here, and thanks to governance. Now, I think I could. The moment I joined, I saw Pragya online, and so maybe credit goes to her also for pushing us to have to be here on this event and talking about on it. Though it's a virtual one, and I think that will that's going to be the norm, maybe the new normal, what we keep on talking all the time. So looking at it from a perspective of saying Prashant risk, uh, I think we have to redefine our thoughts and align ourselves in line with what how we perceive things, how we perceive the threats, and how we have to address it to them. Uh, it's been an unprecedented situation. Most of us have never experienced that kind of situation in our lives so far, and I'm not sure when we will see the similar kind of stuff happening next. But definitely, we are going through one. Uh, if we have to qualify and quantify this, I'll put them into three buckets. One, we have got people, and people comes the first. The second is processes, because they have to be now tweaked and realigned. And third is the technology. Probably technology is something which is providing for and also to be kept abreast to mitigate the risk that emanates. If for technology, or if I say but for technology, we would have been back in the days of 1930, 1918, 1918 or 20s, when the last epidemic happened and everything came to standstill. So I think somewhere the credit goes to the technology as well as to the technologists itself, who have made it possible to continue the businesses to happen. Okay, there have been some impact, no doubt about it, but we are talking here, talking to each other and doing this event itself is a credit and a proof towards that. The technology has it made it possible, But yeah, definitely when we are moving out or moving away, when the concept of uh, open offices, I would say the boundaryless offices. It used to be stateless sectors. Now boundaryless offices is the work. We are all sitting at home doing the job, connecting my endpoints or endpoint devices, which could be both laptop or workstations as well as handheld devices. They provide their own challenges around it. It's getting into the network, which we have and believe me, nobody had enough time to prepare for it, how to do it. But nonetheless, did the organization prepare for it? Absolutely right. They did. The people worked overtime. They made it happen. But equally, it is because now we have got this boundaryless happening. It has resulted in many of the areas where non-white characters have also started playing up. In one of the studies, it has been published that there had been, and this is still on, that there had been a quantum jump of about 38% cyber attacks that have got initiated. And earlier, these attacks used to be at campuses, like your major SEZ centers, where most of the networks used to terminate, right? But unfortunately, after the lockdown that was initiated, the whole traffic moved away from those offices to the traffic went to the individual homes. That is where we are sitting. So what
Absolutely.
has happened? It has resulted in that traffic now going over there, also people moving towards that side to look at and see what all is being taught. And probably that area is very interesting thing, because the bandwidth utilization and consumption of the information or the data or the movement of the information itself is causing some kind of high risk as such.
Absolutely. And I think you covered it well. And you said first thing you said, obviously there are risks because of these changes. All three are impacted. It's going to impact the people, how they behave. Because this is the new normal now. How processes need to be redefined, actually change as well. And the to happen actually to what you are saying, and the kind of cyber attacks. Yeah, somebody has come out of me. So yeah. So and you're right. I think 30% of the cyber attacks have actually kind of gone up. And while Pragya was doing a polling, and I saw, and I think you also saw one of the point where I think almost 23% of the people said that they've never seen a cyber attack, which I think people are not even realizing that I think there is an attack happening, and which they are not really able to identify that as well. So
Yeah,
thank you for that. Yeah,
yeah. I just want to add to your 23%. And I'm just using an analogy over here from what we are going through. Many of the cases go asymptomatic, right? But they are still the carrier.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I
So
think good. Yes,
probably you have not discovered it, but you might be carrying it with you.
yeah. So let me carry on to this point, and I believe that when work from home has become a new norm, and in one of the panel there was a discussion around saying that even if it's not very confidential critical data, we don't want to expose it outside. It still need to move in a file fashion, especially in a government sector. But today we are allowing users to connect, bring their own devices, whether a mobile or a desktop. Uh, how do we address this to a scale with intelligence without compromising? One is privacy of that user, but at the same time providing a complete secure channel for connecting to the services which we want them to connect with. So you feel, how is that a threat? Is that an opportunity?
I think, Prashant, you raised a very pertinent question here, because come what may, business continuity has to happen, and unfortunately, this kind of disaster recovery, nobody had ever thought, I can think of a disaster happening at one site, so I'll have the other site up and running. But having not across pan India, but globally happening some kind of this scenario, it's way way different. And hence it requires the addressals also on similar aspect of it. Like you use the word, concept of BYOD, right? You might have a BYOD, which is your own devices you are connecting, or you might be having your office devices itself, but you are connecting from your home broadbands as such, right? Like what we are doing conversing.
Yeah,
Uh, Bottom line, it is not again just a simple math or a calculation that you can put into. You have to have a multi-pronged strategy here. While people awareness is very important aspect of it, and make them aware that they have to keep it secure, because many times it happens you provide your handheld devices to your kids, they download some apps onto that, which some could be malware also, and then you plug it back into your network still. So it is important and sensitize them and make them aware that, okay, guys, we are doing all this what we are doing, but let's be careful that whatever information we are going to connect, once we connect, information passes through it, it can result in some of those things to come into our networks too. But that's what you can do. I mean, you can sensitize, you can make it happen, but it is important as well. The other comes is the parent area or domain of technology, where technology can play some aspects of it. One of that can be the zero trust networks, what we talk about, where you can do a micro segmentation about it. The second is important is monitoring. We have to enhance our monitoring capabilities and able to track and trace. It's a concept of where we talk about we have to allow and admit, right? We have to do track and trace, and we also have to do scan and sanitize. These three fundamentals we have to keep in our mind. You've got to scan and sanitize, you have to allow and admit, and you have to track and trace. And work accordingly using the aspects of the technology like your zero trust networks, micro segmentation about it, shoring up your socks. If you do not have a sock, maybe set up something using an open source itself and pull it up and bring it up, which can look into those, some of the niche areas where you can bring security or the threats which could be vulnerable. Make your endpoints more enabled from a perspective of having at least minimum security practices and guidelines should be followed. And these guidelines and practices are available. At least that should be there as a norm.
Absolutely. And I think very well said. You said, I think one of the points you said is that at every level, I think we need to find ways and means to make it secure. Like you took an example and saying at the network level, and even if you virtualized network or a physical network, you need to do micro segmentation around it and not just control the traffic which flows at the perimeter, but within the data center and how users are accessing. Can we get into a micro and provide that kind of a consistent security policy across it? So thank you for that. I think the next one, which obviously I think everybody talks about cloud, and while we have also certainly given a push to public cloud, hybrid cloud adoption for critical services, how do we address security and portability concerns? Because when the moment we are still secure when it's part of my data center, but when I'm hosting something outside, security is one area, and for timing, because of the current changes, I deploy it in a public cloud, but when I want to bring it back, is it easy? How tough it will be for organizations to do that?
So I think it's nothing to do alone with cloud as such. And I think what you are saying is how, if I could relate to the question which you are talking about, is that is it a right thing to look at cloud? Is it a time to look at cloud as such? And if you are, how should we plan that to roll out to and take cloud strategy aspect of? Probably
Yes.
taking the cue from your query or question itself, Prashant, I would say the word you used about cloud as a strategy is something which you have to build in first. It may not be possible and admissible for every organization in this world to get into the cloud, but it is also not that it is also there that many of us are also going on that, right? For the reason because it provides scalability, it provides availability, it provides predictability, so on and so forth. So from the perspective of the providers of the cloud and all that, you have to be sure about first, what is your strategy? Where I need to go? Maybe some of the organizations are looking at cloud first as a strategy. That I'll first explore the possibility or availability of the cloud in any of the form, which is IaaS, PaaS, or SaaS, and then look at whether it has to be there. But whatever the strategy, it has to be there that you have to have something called a gateway to interact and integrate seamlessly between your on-premise and cloud. Because whatever said and done, it is yet to be that most of the organizations have become true blue only cloud enabled. There are many things which have gone into cloud, but there are still certain things which are happening within the organization. So it is important and pertinent we devise our thoughts, our strategies, our plans accordingly, and also our security architecture involved and revolved around that. For the reason, because now you have, earlier you had only one, which is to protect your information and the endpoints as such, which included the data center and this. Now the third paradigm or third coordinate has also come in, which is the cloud part of it. So you have, so looking at it, you maybe if you have to use SAML as an architecture for authentication and authorization, or bring the AAA concept about it, inclusive of that your all security, information security, or data security, or whatever we want to call cyber security, it should comply to the CIA norms, so that while we have all that which is related to CI, bottom line is availability too, because CNI I can put lordship within 7 doors, but if I cannot see it, no use.
Absolutely. I think you said it right. I think we can't just look at it from a threat perspective, and I've been trying to understand the mindset from the beginning, and I think it gels with your thought process. It says, I think it has. We have to look at from a holistic perspective. We have to look at from cloud. We have to look at from applications, from the user's perspective, and then see have an intrinsic security model around this. So
I think one dimension, another one, Prashant, to be added to this, more or less now, whether it's your vendors, whether it's your suppliers or your customers, and even your bankers and others have started getting online enabled. Basically, everybody is doing business using IT as a platform. So while these are the three areas, the fourth is these one also that you have to be considerate and careful to get integrated to. And that information exchange has to be secured and containerized too as part of that. Yeah.
I agree. So I'll keep it maybe one more last question to you, and which I also believe in this, but I just wanted to have your. So if you look at zero trust architecture, and I know it's always a battle between you are a CIO, you want to make sure there is a business continuity, but there is always a security team and a CISO team which says, no, I want to deploy security to a level where it has to be hardened to a level. So to keep a balance between, the question here is for zero trust architecture, it's not really taken seriously. So should there be any recommendation, or how do we look at addresses? Because sometimes if you implement it in this model where zero trust, I don't want to trust anybody, I only allow what is required, and it just works well. So is there requirement to have a balance, or we can just go ahead and do this kind of model?
See, I, you know, sometimes I feel many things like cloud. We talk about cloud had not been a cloud from today. It had been there from early 90s when telcos used to provide a co-loco facilities. It was,
Yes.
in a sense, it was a cloud itself, and you used to co-locate itself. The zero trust network is also about between blacklisting and whitelisting. I whitelist the things that only that traffic is allowed. I don't do the rest part of it. It's another part is we have been talking about VPN and creating VLANs and so on and so forth. It is the next level of doing micro segmentation. So it's not that the new concept altogether are a disruptive and a drastic concept has come up. It is just that it has further added on to what already existed. My thought would be less to do as a CIO and a CTO. I would not go with just saying, "Oh, this name sounds really." These days, it's trending much on Twitter, so I should have that. I mean, that's not the philosophy, the way the leadership should be looking. It is more to look from a perspective of what are my areas where I'm interacting or integrating. The second part is what is my threat vector and landscape about it, and based on that, take the right steps about it. For example, if there was no pandemic, ZTN was absolutely right. What you said, it was a new buzzword, right? Like for a few years back, we were talking about data science was a new buzzword, or about 15 years back, SMAC was a new buzzword about it, right? But it is that with this pandemic, it has changed the paradigm of doing business, and probably it has changed for good. We do not know. Maybe this might be the way it will happen for longer period of time, or maybe forever. So it is important to evaluate your integration, your interaction, your interconnects as such, along with where your threat landscape and model is. By the way, here this is all about threat. It is more, actually, it's not just about threat. It is ultimately about business. A, I have to ensure continuity of my business. B, I have to ensure that my business is continuity is not disrupted. And keeping that aspect, how easily I can do that and keep bringing the technology into it, because at the end of the day, technology is an enabler and a transformation. But it would not be that we have to go and jump in and start dictating that now technology says that, so business has to work that way. It will be like tail wagging the dog, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Bharat. I think we are about time, and thank you very much for your, I think, very insightful thoughts over here, and I think our most of the attendees would have really got good inputs from this one. And look forward to speaking with you again. Thank you, Mr.
Look,